Monday to Friday.
I have seen the face of God.
You just might be right, Mr. Just might be right,
Nick. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Freemanjack on TNS Radio, Scottish Sovereigns on the Land, and Scotland the Free. Good evening, everyone. On tonight's New Horizons, as usual, we'll be discussing adult topics with potentially adult language. So if you're easily offended, you might do best plugging your ears or, I don't know, listening to Terry Wogan or something. I've heard that listening to Terry Wogan loud enough and played backwards is a psychedelic experience, but I don't know how true that is. That's a bit too experimental for me. Yes, natural causes and the strange times that we live in. I think that it's probably true to say that we all are in a degree of agreement when I say that we find ranged against us a multinational corporate monster, a multinational military-industrial complex, a multinational group of either secret societies or self-serving societies, groups of individuals, and that to some degree that these can seem the most obscene of devices to be ranged against humanity, that to some degree they can be seen as of not of our creating. But I really don't know quite how true that actually is. You see, it would be my suggestion that the larger part of the corporate machinery that we see ranged against us today has almost entirely been grown out of our own desire for comfort and convenience and ease, and that while we have been offered this easy life, this smooth sailing on a plate for our consumption, that we haven't been smart enough to look to see what the other side of the contract said. And that it's my assertion that most of the multinational corporate giants have been built off of the back of selling us the easy life, the good life, and that their public appearance, their corporate persona, their PR media machines, their advertising campaigns have fooled us into buying in to their corporate lifestyle. I mean, the fizzy drinks companies are a prime example of this, you know what I mean? Selling people fizzy, carbonated, heavily sugared water is just a remarkable piece of marketing. Certainly I find it very hard to believe that the demand would actually exist without the forceful marketing that we've accepted. And this is part of the reason why we find ourselves in the situation that we find ourselves with rapacious governments and rapacious corporations, rapacious military conflicts breaking out all over the world, is that it is necessary, if we are to remain in our state of Western convenience, of the great and wonderful Western style lifestyle that almost every bloody population in the world now seems to think that they want to emulate. Well, frankly, I'm not surprised. I would want to emulate our Western lifestyle if I was in a third world country scrabbling for scraps of plastic in a rubbish heap to make my 50 cents a day that I've got to feed my family on. Unfortunately, the Western-style democracy and the Western-style capitalist model has been marketed very much the same as the fizzy drinks companies have marketed their fizzy drinks, that the product placement is... Are you taking the dog out? Cool, hold on. Alright, I'll stick a tune on until you get out the bloody door. Yeah, what, you want a lighter? You're not taking it with you? Take a light. Right, let me chuck a tune on and get this horrible teenager and dog out the door.
Universe of numbers that represents the global economy. Millions of human hands at work, billions of minds, a vast network screaming with life. An organism. A natural organism.
And a very moot point that he was making there. Yeah, this is a natural organism. This is what we're dealing with here. This is nature, folks. This is human nature because we are nature. We are not the creations of bloody interbred alien archons with Venusians. This just old woo-woo nonsense. Stop it at once. Let's get goddamn real. Because what we've got facing us isn't fucking space aliens. It's a monster of our own creation. We asked for this. We were offered that contract at the crossroads. We made a pact with the devil. Now we've got to work out how we can pick a loophole in that contract. Again, thank you, Sven, for refreshing my memory with the distractions here. Sometimes my train of thought will get entirely interrupted by the most momentary of interruptions. I really must get on to building my studio. Yes, as Sven rightly pointed out, selling democracy to the third world, marketing it in the same way that Pepsi or Coca-Cola has been marketed at the end of a gun, to be quite honest there. Largely, accept our products or we'll accuse you of being a terrorist nation and send in the US military. Of course, only using our model, the British armed forces abroad have always been essentially the militia, the East India Dock Trading Company militia, and certainly nothing at all to do with defending this island or its population. Yeah, and what's so wrong with selling democracy? What's so wrong with selling the Western democratic capitalist model? It works so goddamn well for us, doesn't it? We have this comfortable life. I'm sitting here in my comfortable chair in my warm house with my tea and my spliff in hand, with all of my technological equipment arrayed at my fingertips. Yeah, but there's a slight problem here. All of that stuff that I consider, that I take for granted, that I consider to be part of the Western capitalist lifestyle, unfortunately has all been acquired by enslaving the third world countries, by stealing their mineral resources, by overthrowing their governments, by holding them militaristically with a gun to their head if they don't do as the West sees fit. Now, you know what I mean? Fine when you're selling democracies to second world countries, bit of a problem when you get to the third world countries, because who are they going to kick and steal and rape to gain their great wealth? And there is no great circle here. This can't come back round, you know what I mean? And it's entirely possible that, you know what I mean, places like China may wake up one day to what the West has done to them, close their goddamn borders and start doing to us unto, you know what I mean, that which has been done unto them, and use their corporate, political, financial might to undermine the West. Fortunately, I think that a lot of the propaganda about the Chinese, as was the case with Russia, is largely fear-mongering. And in fact, if you look into the Chinese's financial activities globally, they seem to be involved in some fairly socially minded projects. They certainly seem to be doing a much better job than the IMF ever does in some of these small countries, in as much as they seem to plough investment in for the commercial redemption that the additional trade will bring them, instead of going in like the IMF and wanting to own vast chunks of the infrastructure. So very much taking over the place in the banking system where the traditional mainstream banking should be providing for the lesser well-off nations of the world. So essentially the Western democratic model can only work if there's a cooliewaller at the end of the piece of rope. The fact that we can't see the piece of rope, I mean the person who's pulling the piece of rope, because the piece of rope goes through a little hole in the wall, and the person on the other side of the wall pulling that cooliewaller rope, keeping us nice and cool, is hidden to us, doesn't mean they're not there. And that even in the West, even in the wealthy West, we see almost exactly the same policy being rolled out, with the wealthy basically maintaining their wealth and position on the selling of the whole dream of ambition. You know what I mean? Oh, perhaps, you know what I mean, if I go and take my idea to Mr. Sugar, or if I, you know what I mean, go and ply my wares on the market, maybe I could be a millionaire. Yeah, if you happen to have a double-barrelled surname and have gone to Eton or Oxbridge. So, you know what I mean, we know that we're being sold a lie, and now we're no longer ignorant of the lie. Oh, there's the girls coming back in from Boris baiting. Evening, ladies. Hold on, I'll better throw another tune on. Oh my god. There we go. This one's very apt. Have settled down. They've just come back from Boris baiting. My suggestion was that it might be illegal under the Blood Sports Acts, but apparently it's not. He hasn't got the black stripes down either side, so it's safe. Apparently it was just a shouty fest. This is the one going out on the news feeds today, meeting at Catford Town Hall, possibly Catford Odeon. With Boris to face the hordes of Lewisham that are all complaining about our accident emergency and can't remember what it's called, the baby hospital part being closed down. Again, totally transparent. Could have told them this was coming from 10 years off when they first entered into the PIP agreement. I can't remember how many billion we've now paid for £100 million development 10 years ago, but again, I suppose we've been sold convenience. Private finance initiative was the convenience of not having to pay more taxes while gaining more services and putting it off to the never. And this is a key point here, is that we're living our lives on our children's inheritances, and this is why the whole housing market has become so tits up. And I saw it mentioned during the week that since the Thatcherite council homes sell-off that the largest proportion of those homes hasn't ended up in the hands of you or I as homes for families, but have been through foreclosures bought up by the son or the nephew of one of the ministers responsible for delivering the statutes to enable it, as buy-ups of foreclosed properties. So no nepotism there or anything. And again, same again with the sell-off of British Gas. I mean, first of all, what on earth? How on earth can you sell a publicly owned company without issuing every member of the public with a share? I mean, to be sold our own companies, how much of a fraud? And here's a key point. Here's an observation. Stop buying air. One of Margaret Thatcher's little lauded achievements in her life was to create your Mr. Whippy style nozzle-fed ice cream, believe it or not. She was actually a food scientist in, I believe it was the Walls Labs, before she entered into politics. And she was actually responsible for the development of the extrudable ice cream that we all know and love today, which, like I say, many people don't know. But guess what the added ingredient was that ice cream was lacking, that made it possible to make all of these wonderful ice cream creations from a van that plays extremely loud, horrible music down your street every day during the summer? This miraculous added ingredient that makes ice cream so much more fluid is air. Yes, folks, the the added value of your Mr. Whippy ice cream is an added portion of air. And okay, you can kind of see again the convenience of being able to gain your ice cream freshly squeezed for you into a little nozzle rather than having to have it scooped out of a tub in front of you. May be appealing. Certainly the texture of the ice cream was changed by that adding of air. But I wonder exactly how much the proportional value of the ice cream was in that product. And that got me thinking. That got me thinking about the mass marketing of air as a product. Well, to the extent of air and water as a product. And I started sort of reviewing the various ranges of mainstream mass media marketed products that I could kind of call to mind, and especially the ones really that have come about during my adult life, the ones that didn't exist when I was a child. And okay, some of these products are older than that, but let me give you a few examples. Polo. What exactly is it that is different from a Polo to a normal mint? What exactly is it that you're buying with that brand name? Well, of course, it's the hole in the middle, isn't it? Again, the mass marketing of air as a commodity. We have, obviously, you can go from there to Aero, to Flakes, to a whole array of air puffed pastry and air puffed chocolate. Even bread, if you actually look at bread and what it is that you're buying with bread, it's largely the holes in between the stuff. You wouldn't want to buy some baked wheat. It's not very appealing, it's not very appetising. And it was there laid out for me on a plate that without being shrewd consumers, we have allowed ourselves to be seduced by the the advertiser's message, by the brand names, by the brand loyalty, by the brand lifestyle that you're sold. And I mean, if you consume advertising in, I hate to keep resorting to the term, but in ignorance, if you consume advertising merely as a consumer, if you don't intellectually engage with the message and to some degree examine and dismantle exactly what it is that you're being sold, then you're likely to swallow, you're more likely to kind of follow the cues, the clues that are being given to you within the advertising, without necessarily examining whether or not those are valid attributes to intellectually attach to these products. I mean, flake is a prime example. I mean, exactly how sexualized can you make the advertising for a chocolate which primarily would have been aimed at children? Okay, the adverts were obviously there to encourage adults to buy them, but largely sweets are something that is consumed by children. It certainly should be. And they need the extra sugar, quite right too. Give them more bloody fruit. So, we find ourselves in a world that certainly our parents brought us into, but I would suggest that, reaching my age, I'm approaching 50, most of my peers will have bought into the property market at some point, at some level. Most of them will have bought into the career path, the pension fund, the insurance, the life insurances. There's a lot of things that we can't avoid if we're going to enter into this kind of corporate convenience lifestyle. And it's not my part to admonish people for finding themselves in this situation. Even I found myself kind of being rather too harsh on somebody in one of the void mortgage rooms the other day, who was a rental landlord with multiple properties. I don't know how many, and they were becoming incredibly defensive because of my kind of brutal bluntness over my feelings about sort of landlords and the ownership and use of property. And I actually found myself entirely ashamed at my pursuance of my particular sort of ideology in that particular group, because I suddenly realised that probably pretty much everybody in this group had bought into that same land ownership meme, that they had been sold the lie of land ownership, thinking probably when they entered into the property market that at some time they would even own their own home, without realising that the design guru programs that have been being saturation covered on the mainstream media, the build your own house, the escape to the country, the home and country magazine lifestyle, that most people never ever actually move out of the initial debt that they enter into. They complete one mortgage only to think that that's an opportunity for them to move up the property ladder and enter into a significantly larger mortgage. Very few people ever sort of duck out of that and stick with what they've got and pay for it and sit on it and be happy. And so as a consequence, the vast majority of the property market in this country is in fact in the claim of ownership of the bloody banking system. Where the hell did that come from? And where the hell did it come from that every home in this land could possibly be well within the controls of a few multinational industrialist bankers. It just beggars belief. And so I suppose it may not be the quickest of solutions, it may not be the quickest of outs, but I feel that the daily, the facade is crumbling. The lie of the success of the capitalist model and the lie of democracy, of Western style, first past the post democracy, is that lie needs to be maintained. The cracks need to be plastered over continually, and I feel that the sort of pressure behind the dam has grown to such an extent that the cracks are breaking out too fast for them to cover up. And we can all kind of refer to some of the monumental news stories that have, if anybody was expecting the end of the world on December the 21st, 2012, I suggest that you go look at the kind of swathe of news items that have filled our press since that date and question yourself as to the end of whose world it was on December the 21st, 2012. It certainly wasn't the end of my world, but with, the Operation U-Tree outing more and more celebrity paedophiles, with questions being asked in the House of Commons beyond the normal scope of the control system that exists within those sort of halls of power, with sexual scandals undermining the very leaderships of the great political parties, the big three, with the Pope resigning. My God, whoever thought that they'd see a Pope resign in their lifetime? Second in the BBC was saying second in 2,000 years. I would suggest that was perhaps a little ignorant of the Catholic Church and how long it's been around, but certainly the second only in many hundreds of years, and the first in 600 years. So there would appear to be a huge amount of pressure building without the Catholic Church. So the times, they are changing, and perhaps that wasn't quite so in the 60s, but I honestly believe that we exist perpetually at an apex, at a nadir point where everything that has gone before has been superseded. Now, whether it has been superseded by a beneficial change or a detrimental change is largely immaterial. That change is the natural flow of the system, and that many of our institutions have entrenched intransient machineries of state that just simply aren't fit for purpose anymore. Again, refer people back to my open source computing, open source everything pods, and this is a time unlike any other to be alive. I want to go to a tune. My throat's getting a bit hack-throated. Here's a bit of Knowles for you. Yeah, Knowles Barkley, Transformer. Added value. What exactly is added value when it's at home? Well, it's one of the things that is included in our gross domestic product, in the balances of trade and production, with which our balance of payments between ourselves and the rest of the trading world are calculated. And in the Western European model, added value is counted as a gross domestic product, Now, I would suggest to you that if you were to go onto eBay and buy yourself, I don't know, let's say a pack of pencils, and you buy them from a Chinese manufacturer for a few fractions of the costs of buying them domestically from a local supplier, and that when you bring them to your country, you apply a gold transfer to put somebody's name on the top of the pencil, and subsequently charge many thousands of percent increase in the resale value of those pencils, is that added value actually in the lettering that you have applied, that the profit, if viewed as gross domestic product, doesn't actually add up, because that additional value in the system, that additional money in the system, hasn't actually come from any significant product, and it's only the production of goods that actually generates the initial value. So I suggest that if we want to undermine this kind of corporate monster, that we recognise keenly the marketing of lifestyle logos, that we keenly observe the marketing of convenience, whether that be in food, in transport, in housing, in the delivery of energy, whatever area of our lives, that we all examine keenly all of these various exchange routes through which we act as a medium of transmission of goods and of cash between these corporate agencies, and that by removing ourselves from the supply chains that we recognise as being invalid, as being detrimental, and by encouraging our fellows to do so, is the only way that we can dismantle this model. We are faced now with corporations that can quite happily range armies against whole countries. Clint Mansell there, we got the gun. Yeah, it's kind of they got the guns but we got the numbers, but I wouldn't necessarily want to march an army of folks on a range of automatic bloody weapons. It's one thing doing it in Gandhi's day when it was a breech-load rifle and it took several tenths of a second to reload each round, and it was done face to face. But with modern weapons, with drone technology, whatever, no, I think that the days of mass protest being any way to achieve change has long gone. Just on to sort of secret societies as well. I suspect that the reason why secret societies exist is because religious ignorance exists, because of people's willingness to believe in the power and the knowledge contained within ancient manuscripts, has caused the situation that we see now, with secret societies largely being a sort of a global phenomenon. And we would, how many of you have ever actually questioned why all of these groups should see the need to keep their actions so secret? And if they're that secret, how can we ever be particularly sure as to what those actions actually are? Because it's been kind of my experience of working within the kind of upper echelons of the corporate world that they're ignorant within their own spheres of of experience that the corporate boss has been usually on some kind of life path. They've usually found their way into a significant position in a firm in their early days because of the sphere of influence of their parents. Again, not what you know, but who you know. And that they have literally grown up within that corporate machine. And if you're nurtured by these systems, you are going to remain ignorant of their potential consequential actions. And that was, I mean, one of the things I always used to get into trouble with these bloody CEOs of these big companies, is I couldn't help but stick my bloody oar in. And the occasions that I would sort of question their morals and their corporate policies, they were like rabbits in the headlights. They had no conception of the subjects that I was bringing to the table. They weren't within their corporate sphere of influence. They weren't in their corporate sphere of experience. So, I mean, let's not be too hard on all of these people, because it has been a damn hard world to get on in. Religious persecution from every side, intellectual condemnation, and kind of disinformation so thick on the ground that it's hard to ever know particularly which way's up. But one thing's for certain: if we don't recognise it and act on that recognition, then it continues. And I, for one, don't want my children to inherit this world as it stands, as it's going. But big up all of you out there, big up all of the sort of truth seekers everywhere, that this tide of truth that seems to be over brimming the dam of the ruling elites appears to be global, and it appears to be now, and it appears to be probably significantly more powerful than any of the other movements that have pre-existed it. And again, we get to that whole concept of now being the nadir, the apex, the peak moment of humanity. And I'm sticking to that one, whether you agree with me or not. Right, I'm not going to push my throat very much more. My glands are all up in my throat because of my wisdom teeth on the brew again, so I'm getting a bit hack-throated, and I don't want to wake up tomorrow morning croaking like a pensioner. So I'm going to chuck on a tune, and then I'm going to chuck on a pod to see you through the wee small hours. I actually fancy sticking that Neil Sanders back on, the latest one. I just think that's quite a lively show, decent entertainment for you for the rest of the evening. Just to kind of excuse my absences at the mic, live at the mic, over recent times, but this whole kind of broadcasting lark for me definitely doesn't come naturally. And in case any of you haven't worked it out yet, I do all of this completely unscripted. I don't even work from notes at the moment. I've literally, the only thing I've got up on screen is the blog that I sent out, which is probably a small tweet, hardly bullet pointed notes to present a consistent argument. But yeah, this is kind of this has become like performance art for me. And it, very much like other performance arts, relies very much on the muse being with you. And I'm afraid sometimes lately my mojo just hasn't been working, and I don't see any point in boring you with me droning at the mic when I haven't really got anything of any consequence, significance or novelty to bring to the airwaves. So anyway, I don't know if Mr. Real Deal, oh, he is there. One for you there, my hat. And you can have a pod after this, and I'll be back next week.